Awesome. Welcome to another episode of Fight the Burnout. Today we have an exceptionally special guest. Actually, we were just talking about how awesome it is to have her on the show today. Blechner, I believe I might be pronouncing it right. We'll let her
Yes.
do it in a second. She says I am doing it right. Perfect. She is actually a burnout prevention, and she helps people, work through burnout helps entrepreneurs prevent and overcome burnout as a profession, as a coach or a mentor, as a business. So it'll be awesome to hear from a professional perspective today around what it is exactly that she does, how she does it, and how she's helped people. Now, from what I've read, and I'll let her do it as normal, but she was a PT back in the early 2000s, got burned out, dove down that road, just kind of like I have. Mine was obviously from policing and diving into wanting to overcome my own burnout and then helping other people with it. So, friend, why don't I let you take it away? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your backstory, and then how you've gotten to where you are now.
Sure. Yes, you pronounced my name very well, Chris. Thank you. That was
Perfect.
good. So I started working in fitness from a young age and built up a personal training client base quite quickly. And so throughout my 20s, I was personal training, doing sports massage, teaching classes, taking everything on. I said yes to everything. And when you're personal training, it's usually the most unsociable hours as well. So it's usually my clients would be before they go to work. That would be my busy time between 6:30 a.m. and 9 a.m. And then in the evenings as well. So after work. So I was working all hours a day and I was just constantly on the go, which I loved for many years. I loved what I did. But when I got into my 30s, I was, after doing it for about 10, 12, 15 years or so, I started to burn out. I started to get fatigued. And I became really fascinated with the relationship of adrenal fatigue and hormonal imbalances, because I started to see it in my clients. I started to see that they were exhausted just because of London life. Everyone's moving at such a fast pace and trying to juggle so many things at the pace we were living at was not sustainable. And so I became fascinated with that relationship. And but then soon I needed to apply it to myself, because as I was sort of keep kind of going through the cycle of exhaustion, I needed to implement these tools for myself. And so after a series of heartbreaks and getting into my early to mid 30s and thinking I'm just not in love with what I'm doing anymore, and I'm feeling stuck in my life and feeling really overwhelmed, and an anxiety of like where I should be in my life, and the perception of what success should be and where I should be at my age, that it took me on a deep journey of sort of self discovery, I suppose, and an awakening that took me off to India to do my yoga teacher training. Then I came across various different types of body work training. And every time I went on a training, it was a part of me sort of had a breakthrough of like, wow, reconnecting to myself, but also just processing how depleted my system was, because I just kept on going, and I hadn't realized, especially in that persona and identity of being a personal trainer, you're meant to be strong, you just keep on going, you can't get tired. And then I went on to study holistic lifestyle coaching with the Czech Institute, which is a real eye-opener. And I started my training with them in 2012. And it just all made sense about how to exercise, and in a way of like, because at the moment we're still in such an industry of doing HIIT or high intensity, everything doing, pushing and doing hard. But actually it was about, okay, when do you need to actually cultivate your energy? Are you going to be expending your energy out, or are you going to how can you actually draw your energy in when you need to replenish yourself and when you need to restore? And just understanding more about nutrition when you're burnt out, inflammation, stress, your thoughts, how you breathe, all of these things that in a way gave me permission to myself to go, I'm not, invincible. I'm not like, I don't have to just keep on going and going and going. Like, I need to balance things out. I need to balance out my lifestyle with the doing and the being. I need to rest. I need to balance out rest. I need to actually schedule it in.
Yeah.
And then so really, I guess my learning sort of evolved organically. So I was led to different types of training. I trained extensively in breath work as well, which was another huge eye opener in helping to integrate past emotional trauma, which is a huge factor for burnout as well. And really just opening myself up to life, taking care of my inner world, and how that was going to reflect outside. And so really I completely changed the way I worked. Then I stopped, over time, I stopped doing personal training, and I started to attract more clients to me that had experienced what I had gone through. And I started to spot in them that, I mean, to be honest, in London, it's just everyone, pre-pandemic, everyone was burnt out. Everyone was living some kind of burnout, just because the pace everyone was trying to keep up with wasn't sustainable. And that inspired me, just seeing that the huge crisis in mental health, in anxiety, in autoimmune disease, and in burnout, adrenal fatigue, inspired me to write my book, which was Self-Care for Life in the City, to share everything that I knew that had helped me to really address this epidemic.
Yeah.
And give people the tools and give people the foundation through their lifestyle, through holistic health principles, so that they can build a solid foundation for themselves for life.
Yeah, no, I love that. So much of what you said is so much of what I've learned on my journey as well. And I now teach future cops and all my clients that I coach, and that it's pretty incredible once you actually find it and you recognize that you are burning out and you actually slow down. I love the whole, you got to slow down to be able to actually go forward. Before we go much further, I just want, just because I like to ask this question so that everybody kind of has a baseline of what your definition of burnout is, so they can then kind of apply it to whatever they deem their definition as, because everybody has a different definition of their quote unquote burnout. So what would you define burnout as for you, or what you've figured out over the years?
Yeah, I would say it's feeling physically, emotionally, energetically depleted. And when you're in that state, it's very hard to open up to ideas. So I work a lot with entrepreneurs and other coaches as well. And so when you're in that state, you may feel stuck to move forwards. You feel overwhelmed, anxiety, and it will diminish your creativity, because you can't create space to be creative when your body is in that stress state. So I define it as just physically, emotionally, energetically depleted, a kind of a loss of zest for life, which is how I felt in my so that was about 6-7 years ago. I just was like, apathy. It was like, I'm just going through the motions of life right now. Not right now, but then.
No, I can totally relate to that one.
I had I was giving my energy out all the time. I was just depleting myself.
Not putting, we'll go into kind of your tools and stuff like that, and what you do to overcome it, and what you teach now. But I put it as like, for me personally, I tell people, I'm like, sometimes you need to be selfish in order to actually give to somebody else. Be a little bit selfish so that you can actually then turn up to somebody and not be selfish.
Absolutely. Got to fill your cup up first. And it's we've been taught that it is selfish to you know, you got to put others first, but actually you're doing a disservice, because if you're depleting yourself and then giving from an empty cup, you're not demonstrating one self-love. You've got to be able to give from a full cup. So we need to be conscious of, especially with our children, like how are we showing up? What are we demonstrating? Actually, are we demonstrating that it's okay to keep giving when you're depleted, and not take care of yourself?
So what would you say, like, what do you do now that you've obviously done all this training, and you've come through the burnout, you're now teaching lots of people? What is it that you have learned, or that you do to overcome and prevent yourself from going through that burnout to start with?
Many things, actually. Many things. I think number one, Chris, is boundaries. I got clear on my boundaries. Like I just said yes to everything. Even when I was tired, exhausted, and that's not a good place to serve from. So I had boundaries about the times and the hours, that because I always worked for myself. So I started to create boundaries of when the hours that I was going to work. So for me, I found that when I worked late in the evenings with clients, giving my, like, especially physical energy or doing body work, I felt really depleted, because I'm a more of an early morning person. And so I started to have boundaries, and I'd say no. I wouldn't take on clients at those times. So they had to also just trust that I would attract clients to me within the hours that I was going to work, and that you would get the best from me at that time. So like you said, filling your cup up first. So number one, I'd say about setting strong boundaries, and setting boundaries so that I give myself time in the morning to set my energy and my state. So having a morning ritual, and this is something I teach to my clients, really, really, I think is really powerful, especially during these times, this past year. I always say the energy, the energy you set your day, or the beginning of the day, is the place that you're going to show up and serve for yourself, for your work, for your business, to your family, to your children, to your partner. If you don't give yourself that 5 minutes at least in the morning, then most people go kind of snooze the alarm a few times, and then they jump out of bed at the last minute, first thing coffee. You're not present. And that's how they will go into the rest of their day. Will just feel somewhat a bit chaotic, and their energy is scattered. So especially, this time's almost been a bit of a blessing in some way, because I'm home more now. I can have that nice long morning to really set my energy up for the day. And I always had time. I always gave myself time in the morning, whatever time I woke up. But now I have a longer time. I'm not traveling anywhere or driving to clients in rush hour. So so that's kind of worked in my favor. And so I have that time, and it makes such a huge difference. Like I that's just a non-negotiable. So morning routine. Just trying to remember what your question was. What would you? Yeah, there's so many things.
So let's just touch on boundaries for a second, because I know, like, with my clients, because obviously we're in the same, very similar, industries. We're both helping people prevent or overcome, being burned out. And nowadays, a lot of people have ended up, calming things down, and that being forced on them to recognize and look at themselves with lockdowns. And I think in the UK currently, as we're recording this, you guys are still in lockdown, aren't you?
Yeah, kind of, with being eased out.
Yeah. So I mean, here in New Zealand,
yeah, we are.
So here in New Zealand, we're coming obviously up, we go up and down. We just Auckland here, we just came out of our version of like lockdown type thing. So it's not quite the same, but it's, when we went into lockdown the first time, like a year ago now, it was, everybody was forced to look at themselves and forced to recognize things. And some people did it well, some people didn't. Some people came out of it and went, oh my God, I'm never going back to how I was before. I'm not doing that,
Yeah.
rushing to work, and they've kind of calmed down. But I also do know that there's a lot of people, when it comes to boundaries, they still struggle with putting in boundaries. So what's your advice for those guys out there that are still struggling to be able to say no, or they're those ones that want to give to everybody so much because of past experiences? And obviously, as we know, childhood stuff causes a lot of who we are today.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people that are, they're like, I can't say no. They just no, it just feels wrong to say no to people, or say no, it goes against my values or whatever. They, as I say, excuse they bring up to be able to put boundaries in.
It is a practice. I do think it is a practice. The first one, couple of things I would say, like one thing I write quite a bit about in my book is getting clear on your priorities and your values. Mm-hmm. So once you're clear on your top three priorities, for me, my top three priorities are: one, my health, mm-hmm. Two, doing what I love, so living from a place of passion and purpose. As soon as that dies for me, like it did with personal training, like, I just felt like I was going through the motions of life, so I knew it was time for a change. So doing something that is from a passion and purpose. And three is relationships, so not just partner relationship, but also friendships, and having that tribe and connection. And so asking yourself, so once you become aware of those, and asking yourself, if me saying yes going against my own priorities. And I think the more you get aware of your priorities and your core values, the easier it starts to become. So for me, I used to say yes to everything, like, meeting people all across town or doing stuff. But then when as a reminder, it's like it gets a bit louder in your head, like, oh, well, my health. Okay, do you know what? Actually, I really need to have a decent night's sleep tonight. So I'm going to say no to that because I need this evening to rest. And that impacts my health if I was to say yes. So that starts to become clearer, but also noticing that when you say yes, but really it's a no, how does that feel within your body? Because there will be a visceral reaction, right? There'll be a visceral reaction. It'll be like, yes, and then you'll feel it like in your gut, where it's like, oh, I really don't want to go there or do that, or prior to whatever you said yes to, you'll start to feel that perhaps resistance or resentment or heaviness to actually go off and do that. And then also asking, why do I keep saying yes? What is that deeper feeling underneath? Is it often it's maybe not feeling enough, or seeking love and approval and validation by people pleasing is a huge one. So it's kind of just going under the layers, and first thing is just bringing awareness to it, becoming more conscious of it, and then you'll start to hear those messages more from your body. And when you're being pulled out of alignment from what your priorities and your values are. But if you don't know them, then yes, of course, you're going to say your energy, you're going to be pulled in all different directions, and because you're not clear.
Yeah. No, I like that. I don't know if you find it as well. A lot of people struggle to, when they have their own pains, or when they're actually in a state of burnout, especially, they struggle to actually say their truth. Like what they know to be actually true to them, they struggle to actually say it, and they just want to just kind of move on and get past the situation. And so they'll just say yes just to please, and just to be like, yeah, okay, yeah, cool, I'll be there, and then they just don't turn up.
Yeah. So yeah, it's when you're living in survival mode, yeah, it's like, okay, what do I need to do or say to survive?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a practice, and I think once you break out of that. And it doesn't mean it's you're able to do it all the time. Like, I'm still definitely like, say yes, and I'm like, shit, should have been, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do when you do that, Fran? What do you do when you say yes, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, that actually does not line up with me? What do you do?
Oh, trying to think if I've done that. When the last time I did that? Do you know what? I take it as a lesson. Just go, okay, all right. Compassion to myself, and take that as a lesson. Like, how does that make me feel? That doesn't feel good. Okay, that's a reminder for me.
Yeah.
Next time.
Do you ever go back?
Or maybe I will.
Sorry, do you ever go back to the person or the thing that you said yes to and go, hey, actually, I can't do that right now. I'm going to have to postpone it, or I'm going to have to
Yes.
do this because I'm not
Yeah,
going
I
to be able
have
to show
done.
up?
Yeah, I have done. Yeah. Yeah. Also, yeah, it depends who it is. Sometimes I can be honest and say, do you know what? I said yes, and actually I need to give myself this some time and some space to whatever. And it depends who it is. And they'll be like, oh, that's totally cool. They'll respect it. They respect you more. So yeah, it depends what I said yes to when it went to be a no.
Yeah. So
Sometimes, but yeah, sometimes they'll be like,
yeah, sometimes it's actually kind of nice to actually, sometimes when you do say those yeses and you're like, oh, maybe I don't really, but then you kind of look at it actually deeper and it's like, actually, that's something else that is coming up that's causing me not to do that. So really, I actually do need to do that. That's kind of a interesting thing sometimes.
mm, mm, yeah. And I think, yeah, it can serve as a blessing, as just a reminder to go, okay, it's a reminder. I've maybe not listened to myself enough
Yeah.
to hear the no's, and this is how it's made me feel turning up to, you know, do this when it was perhaps a no, or turning up to saying something that I didn't mean to agree to.
Yeah.
Just, that's a reminder.
Yeah, no. So now I know you do a bit of stuff with corporates and stuff. So what do you tell to corporates in order to help make sure that they're, or maybe even you have employees, but like their team and their employees, so to help prevent the team from burning out, so they actually become, so they actually are more productive?
Yeah, well, I work, I mean, at the moment with the corporate world, well-being is a huge factor. So um again, it's really working with the lifestyle principles and helping them to, first of all, understand what burnout is. And a lot of the time, especially in the corporate working world, like myself, although I've never worked in the corporate world, but there is a sense of, you just stay on the treadmill and it's normal to feel burnt out. Most people are walking around burnt out and like it's normal. That's just what you do. You just get on and keep going. That's working life, but it doesn't have to be like that. So I think, again, once you explain the concept of burnout and how everyone is sort of trying to keep up with this fast pace, it suddenly gives people permission to go, oh, wow, yeah, I recognize myself in that. That's me. Like, yeah, actually, I am really suffering from anxiety and insomnia. So first of all, I think it's understanding what it is and how it can present itself. And then secondly, I'm huge on redefining success. So I work with my clients, with corporates, on what does success actually mean for you? Because most people are chasing a definition of success that has been presented outside of them externally, and they're constantly chasing that and never feeling satisfied, or never feeling like it's enough. Or they get the next promotion, they get to the top, and still there's a dissatisfaction or an emptiness, because they're not living fully in alignment, or haven't recognized, what does it actually mean for me? What does it actually mean personally to me? And that's a game changer. And for me, that's a game changer as well. And so, yeah, that, again, going back to redefining, getting really clear on what your values are, because then you can start to live your life in alignment. with your values and start to evaluate, actually, is how I'm working or how I'm living in alignment with my values? And it gives you kind of a clearer roadmap to living your life. And when most people that I ask they can tell me the core values of their business or the company that they work for, but they can't answer it for themselves. So this is another huge game changer. So I'll start with that. Start with the basics, the foundation, and then on top of that is lifestyle. So nutrition, movement, having practices, morning rituals, and really learning how to take care of your energy.
Yeah, no, it's it's funny every time everything that you're saying is like the same thing. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's just once you recognize it, it's quite easy to like go, oh yeah, but it's finding that things, and this is why we get coaches and get mentors to help us break through it, isn't it?
Yeah, and for me, I'll just share as well that I had a when I was personal training and running around like a headless chicken, I would say.
I can relate to
all
that.
over town, all hours of the day.
Yeah.
All hours of the day. People would say to me, "Oh, you're really busy," and I'd be like, "Yes, I'm really busy." And that was like validation that I was good enough and that I was successful. So my definition of success, without realizing, was that I'm really busy. But then when I stepped back and I went, hold on a minute, I'm really busy at the expense of depleting my energy, exhausting myself, impacting my health. I have no time for relationships. Sometimes maybe time to see my friends if I'm not too tired. That's not my definition of success. That doesn't belong to me. That's not mine. Yeah. And so that completely changed. I'd say that changed my life when I had that realization. I mean, it took me a few years to come to that conclusion, quite a few years, probably at least 10. And I was like, okay, hang on a minute. And they completely revolutionized the way that I work and how, again, redefining success for me now is that I have the time, energy, and resources to do what I love, to spend time with the people that I love, but also to take care of myself so that I can fill up my container and serve from a very powerful place, and do the work that I'm meant to do here in this world.
Yeah.
No, I was like, that resonates.
Yeah. No, I'm saying mine was kind of, obviously we talked a little bit about this before we jumped on, but obviously having the law enforcement background, and viewers have heard this one if they've listened to episode 1, especially. But my background was law enforcement here in New Zealand, 7 years, nothing compared to my old colleagues that who lived in the US and that, or even in the UK, and I ended up doing like our version of Secret Service, so VIP protection, looking at, being the bodyguard, or as it used to be called, the glorified bullet catch. If something happened, you were the person that gets taken out while the VIP gets taken away. And so you're constantly, you're constantly at this alert level, freaking 100, well past 10. And, it was the switching off for me, but my awareness was brought to me with, and, I went through stuff before I even got into that squad, just from going to the trauma, from the traumatic things of seeing, death and emotional drainage for myself, from, advising jobs, from telling people, that somebody had passed away, a loved one had passed away, and then not recharging myself. And again, the boundaries, not saying no, or wanting to put everybody else first, or thinking that I had to, or thinking that I wasn't good enough. But it then came into, like, my realization was literally, I don't know about, yours, it sounds like you found it on your own, but mine was literally my wife forcing me to go to counseling. And also my wife, the real big one was me almost cheating on my wife. So I was literally got to a state of almost cheating on her, because I was looking for external validation, external love, whereas I already had it. But because I was so drained, my cup was so empty, I couldn't see what was right in front of my own eyes, even though people were telling me it. And so, yeah, no, it's an interesting thing. Once you have that realization, you actually recognize it and you go, oh my God, I'm empty, I'm gone. And then, I took a counselor telling me it, and still me thinking the counselor just hated cops. She just wanted one less on the road. That's how burned out I was. I was just literally like empty tank. But yeah, having that realization and then going, oh my God, there's so many people in this world that are living like this day to day. And how do we help them? How do we make a difference to that? So friend, what would you, if you were...
It's a powerful realization.
Yeah. Oh, it's very, and then it took me a 2.5, almost 3-month motorcycle trip on my own. Didn't know if I was coming back to New Zealand. I went back to the US and I rode a motorcycle around, just forcing myself to interact and talk with people to bring myself back to the person I was before I was burned out. And so that was my tank filler as such. That filled my cup, not completely, but filled it up so much that I was able to actually see the light on the outside of the tunnel.
Yeah, to reconnect to yourself, because you must feel, I think in those times you become disconnected with yourself and who you are.
Yeah. So I was extremely burned out. And so, if you say you saw somebody like myself or had somebody come to you that was like, I don't know what's going on, or maybe it was a loved one of somebody and they're like, I don't know what's going on with Chris. What do you say to those people, or how do you help get the message across that, hey, you are burning out and you do need to shift, when they're still in that mindset of not everything's fine, I just chug along and just get shit done?
It's a really good question. I also think that the person has to be ready and come to that, sometimes a bit of a realization. They can have perhaps a little nudge, but how to make someone come to that realization is, I'd say I'd never want to preach to anyone or tell someone what to do, but I think it would just be having a chat. I think I have a way of having, I was joking with somebody on another podcast that I seem to have a way that wherever I go, if I go to my local park for a walk on my own, so I attract someone that will just start talking to a stranger, and they'll open up and tell me their whole life story, and it just starts with an interaction, and they'll say, I've never told anyone this before. And so I think it begins with an interaction and chat, permission to be heard. I think, that's what I would say. I'd say, because it's not about telling someone what they should do or the state that they're in or preaching, but actually when you really start to see someone, when they feel heard, then things begin to open up and unravel. And I think so many people are not living in a present state or going through life quite unconsciously, that when you just bring that conscious awareness and presence in the presence of someone, you're giving them permission to actually for them to connect to themselves, and for them to go, they'll have the realizations on their own.
Yeah. So just being that void for them to open up to.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, and having empathy to go, wow, you're taking on a lot, you're doing a lot. One powerful question is, what do you do to relax? That's not many people, very few people can answer that. What do you do to relax? I had one of my clients, I remember I was asking that, I was talking about having a salt bath. And he's like, a bath? I couldn't be in the bath that long. that's just, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. I was like, come on, so one of my favorite things to do. And he still brings that up like a year later. He's like, yeah, it's like, I mean, I just he was like, I start getting anxious thinking of a bath, because like, that's just a time wasted.
Yeah.
So just asking the question, what do you do to relax? And when people realize that they might get stuck answering that, they'll realize that, I don't really relax.
It's funny, I've always been able to answer that question. Mine was working on 4-wheel drives, but if you asked me how relaxed I felt after it, I'd probably tell you about a 4 out of 10. Because sometimes it would cause me more anxiety working on the truck than just like, but then other times it was like an 8 or 9 out of 10. It's a thing, because it gets you thinking. It gets you thinking about what is it that you're actually doing to relax, and is it actually relaxing you?
Yeah.
I like that question. What are you doing to relax? So, Fran, anything else you want to add before we move on to the next kind of subject topic that I have for you? Anything else that you want to add for helping people overcome and prevent burnout?
No, I mean, there's so much I could add, but let's go on to, let's see what you got for the next question.
Sorry. No, I think that's some really good stuff. Boundaries, identifying your success. Asking yourself what you do to relax. I think those are some really good things to set in just to start with. Because so many people, if you give them too much, then it's like too overwhelming and they get burned out on trying to not get burned out.
That's the thing. Yeah. That is another thing.
Yeah. I mean,
then it becomes like this to-do list of doing relaxing things, and that defeats the purpose.
Yeah, exactly. I always tell people, just start with taking care of yourself. Like I've got a bit of a pyramid that I created, and some of it is based off of NLP work, as well as some stuff from like Tony Robbins events and that I've learned. But like the outside's focus, language, body language, and then the layers, which are real important, which I created myself, was at the bottom, the foundation, self-care. So taking care of yourself. The middle is taking care of your loved ones, the ones that you classify as your family. So it doesn't have to be blood. I tell people this all the time. Blood does not mean that they're family. Sometimes they're toxic to us. But yeah, so if, family and loved ones, and if you're in a relationship, your relationship comes before your kids, because otherwise your kids see your relationship and it just doesn't work. And then the very top is work and everybody else. And I find, I don't know what you find, but I find most people run it upside down.
Very true. Yeah.
So my next question is, I'm a why guy, and it kind of goes into your thing of identifying success, because it does kind of help with that. But I'm a why guy, and I find that everybody, especially people that are really passionate about what they do, they've already pretty much identified their real core why, and also even where it stems from. Like, for example, I say this each time, my why is I want to create less pain in the world and in people's lives, and also in my own life. And this stems from childhood experiences with my parents fighting, and I didn't fight nastily, but just seeing them fight and having fights, and also seeing kids getting bullied and stuff when I was a kid, and my brother getting bullied. So that's kind of where it stems from, but I want to create less pain. And so in turn, it's caused me to do all the different things that I have, be there for kids in school when I was sailing around the world, be there for other kids and be the center of, like, if there are kids in the harbor, we'd all, we'd be the center of it, always wanting to have people around. And then also going into, obviously, law enforcement, wanting to create less pain in people's lives by helping them in their time of need. So, Fran, what would you say your why is that gets you through those easy times, but also keeps you going during those hard times?
I'd say my why is, I think is based a lot on my own experiences of burning out, so wanting to help, because I see it. I recognize myself in so many other entrepreneurs, coaches, especially people in the wellness field as well, and it's really helping them to, because I know that when you have a strong foundation of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health, then that changes everything. It changes how you work, how you run your business, and it changes your relationships. It changes your connection to yourself and happiness. So I think my why is just the drive to share what I know has helped me, and also to, I think, like, say, when I was in my early 20s, or when I was as a teenager, there wasn't really many people who were experiencing, around our age, experiencing high anxiety, adrenal fatigue, and autoimmune disease. It was quite few and far between, but now it's like a real epidemic. You know, I'm meeting so many people in their 20s, early 20s, with ME, burnout, what's the other one, autoimmune disease. It's like, wow, that something is going on. And it's not just stress and the pace of the lifestyle. It's also it's environmental, the way the food is grown, so many factors. And I feel that it's a duty. I feel like my why is it's a duty to help people, to educate people that how you have to make a conscious effort with your health, because the odds are not stacked in your favor at the moment, with just environment, the pollution, with heavy spraying on the foods. So we have to be able to really, it's either survive or thrive. And you can only thrive if you return back to your true nature. So eating foods, I say in my book, as nature intended, as close to nature as nature intended. So growing without all the chemicals sprayed on it. And so many factors, even cosmetics and products and skincare products that are put on your skin that go and absorb into your blood, and are endocrine disruptors. So just looking for more natural alternatives. So there's so many things, and it's quite simple to hack into those things once you know how, and that makes a huge difference on the health. And of course, each person, the health of each person, we are our own ecosystem, is going to affect the whole ecosystem of the planet. And that is definitely at a critical point of needing to change.
We've definitely seen that one. All right, so why is it important for you to pass on your knowledge? Why is it important for you to pass on your knowledge?
I'd say for that reason, it's not about me as such, but it's about sharing that information, so that we can build a bigger, better whole ecosystem of the whole planet. But it starts with each person, and I believe it starts with each person has to become the leader of themselves. They have to become accountable and self-responsible for their health. We're at that stage now where, like, we have to, because planet is at a critical point. It's unhealthy ecosystems individually creates an unhealthy collective ecosystem and planet. So we have to turn that around by becoming the leaders of ourselves and masters of our health, master of our own mind, body, emotions, our lifestyle habits, so that we can pass that on to the future generations. Otherwise, there isn't going to be a future. We will be extinct.
Yeah. So, Fran, because I geek out on the why stuff. That's where I really get passionate about, because I personally, I feel that when you recognize this at a deep level, like you obviously have, it changes everything for your life, like how you focus on taking care of yourself, how you focus on taking care of others, how you focus on work, because then you're doing it for something. It's almost like if you're a religious person, like having having the greater thought of having that the of God and all of that. I'm not a religious person, but my thing is when it's actually tied to you personally, it just drives you and pulls you so much more than you having to push. So my question,
Yeah.
when you were a kid, did you have any kind of insights or any kind of experiences with seeing the ecosystem getting destroyed or anything like that when you were young,
Um,
or any awareness of it?
no, I'd say no, actually. I didn't. I was not of like as of the whole planet. Um,
Even if something small, like even maybe just
no.
something from your backyard or something.
Mm. Um, yeah, I think when you're a kid, you kind of like whatever you grow up in is your normal. You don't know any different until as you get a bit older and experience other families or other ways or other kind of places to live or environments. So I think, yeah, not in the extent that I see it now in terms of the ecosystem of the whole of the collective. I suppose you or didn't have that same awareness when as a kid, or when I was younger, of that.
Yeah. What about of like human interaction into like the ecosystem, like of like, because yours obviously comes from wanting to help people be the best that they can be, prevent burnout, overcome burnout, through nutrition, everything. Did you ever see as a kid see that whole side of like where somebody did something or used stuff or um interacted with things and then it caused something to them personally?
Mm. Um,
Or to yourself?
yeah, yeah, definitely. Like, especially at school, I went to a school that was predominantly white, and so as only a few of us as brown, as you would say, definitely became aware of, in my primary school, became aware of certain prejudices or just especially one teacher in particular always felt that the way she, as a young child, was very intuitive, so I could just pick up the sense, even though it wasn't perhaps there was nothing said directly, but I could sense that her behavior to me was that she didn't like me, and that was the only reason I just knew. I could sense that in the way that she favored other people in the class. So there was a sense, I think, growing up that there is prejudice against different race, different cultures, especially when you're not represented, and you're aware that you're not represented there, and then you're aware of how people are their biases, or the way that they're behaving towards you. You can sense it, you can pick that up. So yeah, in that sense, it was you become aware from a young age of that not all people, or adults in particular, because racism is a learned behavior, that not all adults are kind and loving to everybody as a human.
How'd that get you into personal training then?
How
How'd it get you into personal training? Like I believe your why wherever it stems from or whatever it is, and yours wanting to create more awareness for people and teach people, coming from that kind of background, when you're a kid, it goes into literally everything that we do, like mine, with the sailing, with the, being a police officer, now doing the burnout prevention, now doing, helping cops get into the place and not burn out being a cop, being the best cops that they can be. All for me is all creating less pain in their lives and others' lives. How would you say, how would you say it's kind of stemmed into, helping you to go through, being a PT and then now doing all the burnout prevention?
Mm. Um, I think, yeah, going into the PT side was something that I always had an interest in health and fitness. And in a way, that became my identity. That was an identity, was that I was good at sport. I was good at athletics. And I think when you have an identity, when you're good at something at school, you hold on to that. And especially as an identity. And so that it was either that I wanted to be a PE teacher or personal trainer. And I went down more of the personal training route for many years. And yeah, it was such a strong archetype, I would say, like to be the athlete, to be the strong one, to be the personal trainer. And I was influenced by that. Was whenever I went to places with my friends, they would always introduce me as, oh, this is my friend Fran, she's a personal trainer. So that became, I had approval as well from people around me. So when I fell out of love with that, that was quite hard because I had to let that identity go. And I actually didn't know, as like a lost connection with myself. It's like, oh, well, who am I as the good one at school, as the good one at sport and at school? That's what I had to hold on to as I got approval from people around me, from my peers, to be good at that. So I guess that was a validation. And so really taking it into where I am now, and that work has been a journey of reconnecting to myself without any labels, without identities, actually just connecting to within, without influences of what surrounds or what I should be doing, but actually what's true for me. And then I suppose it's been quite an organic evolution to do the work that I'm doing now.
How did you break out of that identity? Because I know, like, when I left being a cop, same thing, had the same thing. And most like first responders that I know of, or most people that have done a job for a very long time, have an identity crisis, as you could say. What was your things that helped you get through that?
Good question. I think it's not something that's overnight either. It wasn't like I suddenly was like, okay, I'm gonna stop doing personal training now. I'm dropping all my clients overnight. It kind of slowly happened where I think as I started to redefine and rebrand my work, and change what I would call myself, then slowly some of those clients dropped away. And then that created space for the new clients to come in that was more aligned with what I had just started to do. So it was a process, but had to be true to myself. But it's I'd say having to become aware of the discomfort, sitting in that discomfort of I am not what I do, or I am not what, like, my title, that, like, what I have, how I've been perceived, and just trusting that you're creating space for the next evolution, because we don't always stick with the one thing that we may have gone into. it is okay to change, and it is okay because you're constantly evolving, and so will everything in your life. That means relationships, that means your business, it may mean your job, where you live, and especially, as you say, in the last year, people will be questioning everything about their life and taking a look within themselves and seeing where they want to change.
Yeah, no, I think that's,
yeah,
it's a real important thing to, you know, reiterate that you don't have to stay where you're at. I had this conversation with somebody, actually an old friend of mine from policing days. I interviewed her just recently, and yeah, same thing. It was like, you know, you don't have to be who you have been for this time, because it's not actually your identity. Your identity is who you ever want, who you want to sit in, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And not getting too attached to the identities and or labels, and getting clear of who you are, that can show up as many facets and different archetypes as well, which will you'll shift into throughout your evolution, throughout your time. And so for me, one of them was the athlete my whole life, up until 6 years ago, and I had to let that go. I'd kind of completed that time.
So what did you, because I'm quite a strong-minded person, always have been. I grew up sailing around the world, as we talked about before we started recording. And, you know, always had that determined mind of, you know, when you put your mind to something, you can get it done. And I feel like a lot of athletes have that as well, which makes you a very driven person. But also I feel like, you know, it's almost that A-type personality where it's like, okay, let's get stuff done. Let's go, let's push, let's make it happen. But also you're more prone to that burnout side. Would you call that true or not?
Yeah, very much. In fact, my partner in the past has worked with some elite athletes, and yeah, same thing. Some of the best athletes have been like amazing at doing what they do just through the doing, but when they've got to a point of a severe injury, then or their career may have been shortened. But then when he's worked with them more in the rehabilitation side, and helping to, again, from a holistic perspective, just working much smarter rather than harder. So even with athletes, it's very much like work harder. And some of them get there just through pure grit and discipline, but often there is a pay, what do you call it? There's a not payback, what do you call it? They may pay for it later down the line. Yeah. Through injuries, through burnout, through fatigue, definitely a pattern, because they may not have the tools of actually training smarter, in a much smarter way. And there are some where we're starting to see they've got much more of a holistic program, and incorporating more, perhaps, you know, Tai Chi movement into their training. And some of these athletes, in fact, sorry, let me just ask Warren, who's the tennis player who does the Tai Chi and sorry? Oh yeah, so like Novak Djokovic, he does he's got a very holistic program now, so with what he eats, but he has you know, he does, like, I think it's like more Tai Chi practices as well within his program. So he's very much a well-structured 360 program, looking at his nutrition, and so he's doing great. He's thriving rather than just pushing through grit and determination and drive, and then, you know, being exhausted after the tour.
Yeah, you know, you hear about all those guys that came, you know, even back, you know, not even that long ago, all the guys that would come out of the Olympics, or, you know, women as well, the men and women that come out of the Olympics, and that they come out of the Olympics and they just take a whole year off. And for me, I'm like, that is not necessarily like, wouldn't you be better off to have a balanced program for the 3 years leading up to the Olympics, so that you can then come out of the Olympics and then go straight back into a balanced program to come back? And wouldn't you be a much better performer than if you just grit, 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 grit? Oh my God, thank God I'm done. And then go, okay, oh, fuck, now I actually have to get back into it. Okay, cool. Let's kind of ease us, and then back. Yeah. So it is, for me personally, I believe that there's a huge correlation between burnout prevention and performance. Because when
Yeah,
you're
huge.
not
And
burned out, you perform twice as well.
definitely. And yeah, it is huge in with athletes. It's another one. Again, I think because they're riding the persona of to be strong and just get through, but you still got to balance the doing with the being. And actually, a friend of ours is called Mike Salimi. He's an athlete. He was doing wild, like, weightlifting many years ago, really heavyweight weightlifting, and I think he was a world champion actually, and doing competitive kettlebell sport. But he kept injured. He was like, doing in the gym, lifting heavy all the time, and he had a really bad shoulder injury that just wouldn't heal. So he sought one of our teachers, Paul Check, who teaches all this stuff about the holistic lifestyle and living health principles, and completely changed the game for him, because he was started to look at everything he was eating, taking out inflammatory foods and the times that he was eating, and training like half as much as he was, and incorporating more recovery type, restorative type movements, sleeping, getting in sync with his circadian rhythms, and all of these things, hydration properly, breathing properly, doing breath work, and all of these things. He healed his injury and then actually performed much better, and became a much better athlete, and is stronger, and he's like, I train half the amount now than I used to, and I'm much stronger and better for it, and I rarely never injure myself.
No, I think that's it's so true. And once people realize that, it actually is a life changer for them. So as we kind of wrap down, Fran, one of the last questions I have for you is, what would be your number one piece of advice for listeners when it comes to burnout?
Oh, Chris, number one, I would say, give yourself 5 minutes at least in the morning to start your day. Start one day at a time, because how you start your day will set your energy and state up for the rest of the day. So even if it's 5 minutes, just placing your feet on the floor, breathing into the belly a few times, feel your feet on the ground, to just ground yourself before you even start the day, is going to change how you move through the day and the people you interact with. And if you do that one day at a time, then you're going to just start to become more present and more conscious in moving through your day.
I love that. Yeah.
And slow down. Can I say 2 things? Slow down. It's a reminder for me too.
Yeah, that old saying from when we're kids, the turtle beats the hare just by continually moving, whereas the hare burns himself out.
Yeah, slowing down. So body and the mind.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, as far as the taking 5 minutes, my morning routine consistently, and I've done it for over a year now, and it made a life-changing thing. Is first thing when I wake up, tell myself 1 to 3 things I'm grateful for, 1 to 3 things I accomplished the day before, and then I get up and I just move, even if it's just walking through the house. taking the dogs to go to the toilet outside, whatever it is. And those three things have absolutely changed my, because it starts your day instead of looking at your phone or, thinking about all the things that you have to get done, or, it just creates the day that you want it to be off of gratefulness.
Definitely. And yes, that's the other thing, that like, put your phone, don't let reach for your phone first thing, because that will just put you in a state of like, what have I got to do? Who have I got to respond to? And then you just get sucked into social media world, or
it was interesting.
It's not a good way to start.
I interviewed Kyle Chandler, who's actually my uncle, a while back. He's an actor in that, and he said his number one thing that he doesn't do is he doesn't do social media, because he's like, it just drains your brain. He's like, I don't even have a social media account. He's like, I'm just not on it. He's like, get rid of it. You don't need it unless. I was like, the only reason I have it is for family and that. Yeah, but he's like, no social media. He's like, don't need it. So it was pretty.
That's good. I mean, I do use it for work, but
same.
But I do watch how much I limit.
Yeah. If you didn't need it for work,
that's it. Once you're on your hooked in.
So Fran, how do people, if people want to touch base with you, maybe they're in London, maybe they resonated really well with you today. I know you're doing a lot of the burnout prevention stuff, which is awesome. It lines up directly with what we do here at Fight the Burnout. So how do they get in touch with you? I know you sent me some links in that, but I like to say them in here as well, in case somebody's listening in their car or whatever. But we'll also put the links and stuff that you gave me in the description. But how do they get in touch with you?
So my website is www.holisticbodylife.com. That's holistic with a W, WHOLISTIC, bodylife.com. And my Instagram, talking of social media, is the same, Holistic Body Life. And I have on my website a free 5 tips to overcome overwhelm that people can download. And also have a book, Self-Care for Life in the City, which you can order direct from my website if you're in the UK, or from most other global outlets like Amazon and Foyles, Waterstone. That's all available online.
Awesome, cool.
As ebook and paperback.
It's on my I've got you sent me your ebook, so it's on my list to read after I read Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement is the next one that I've just picked up. Because I've been told by lots and lots of police officers you have to read it. I was like, okay, cool, I'll pick it up then. Awesome, cool. So yes, so if you want to get Fran's book, or even just touch base with her, find out some more information about her, go to her website. The link is in the bio. Last question I have for you: what is your top tip for self-happiness?
Ooh. Top tip for self-happiness. Do you know what I'd say? Just is having fun, making time to play, get in touch with the inner child, making time to play every day, and doing something. We live in a world of productivity, so actually doing something that doesn't have any outcome, unbound play, has no outcome, brings out some fun, and that you just do it for the pure joy of that. So reconnecting to that.
I love it. Fran, any last words before we wrap up?
No, I've really enjoyed this podcast, this recording, and I love that you asked my why, actually, because it just reminded me of actually what my why is. We've revisited that for a while. So thank you. No, great questions. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Fran. Well, thank you very much for being on here, and thanks for doing what you're doing. As you and viewers and listeners know, it's a huge passion of mine to help create more performance in people's lives through actually doing less. And so, through being not burned out, because when you're burned out, everybody around you gets affected. And so, as we always say, our motto here is train hard, test easy, because we want to train that mind and that body hard, obviously in a way of taking care of yourself so that when you are tested, it's easy. We always do get tested. We have different bouts and states and areas of getting through burnout. Sometimes we're just going to the next level. Sometimes we actually need to take a break. And so those are our tests. But we want to have our mind ready and going for those and limit the amount of them that are there. So again, if you are looking for information on Fran, look in the description down below. Or if you want to just touch base with us, just flick us an email at fighttheburnouttpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll be more than happy to send you some more information, get in touch with you, have a chat, do whatever we need to do, whatever is going to work best for you. But again, that's fighttheburnouttpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, guys, we love you all. Thanks for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, and reach out if you have anybody else that you want us to interview or talk to. If there's somebody that you're interested in, we're more than happy to reach out to them. We love you all. And remember, keep doing great things.